your blog on it, and I noticed something very interesting, which I guess you do probably during the summer months when you have these camps for young people. The power of a summit story, and I read some of those, including one that was Nick Hall. Tell us a little bit about how going to these summit camps changes not just the minds of a lot of these young people, but the whole trajectory of their lives.
Yeah, and the trajectory is the key word. Most young adults think that they're probably just going to live a very normal life, and hopefully they'll wake up every morning and not be dead, and they'll get a job, and they'll just be able to have that sort of life. And we challenge them to really step across the line into a life of adventure, a life that's unpredictable, but a life in which your legacy is that you've left things better for everybody else than they were for you. And when you start giving that message to somebody who's 16 to 21 years of age, that is just water, cool water to a burning soul. 4 out of 5 young adults today say they don't have a sense of purpose or direction in life. And you say to them, here it is. If you can understand what God says in Scripture and you can live this out, you can be an ambassador for Christ. You don't have to wait till you're older. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, Paul told Timothy. And it gives them a sense that I can understand what's going on in the world around me, in many cases better than a lot of adults can understand it. And as a result, I can truly love God with all of my mind, my heart, my soul, my strength, and begin to be the kind of person who is part of the solution rather than part of the problem. You lay that out in front of a kid and say, would you like this kind of life? And 3 out of 4 of them are going to say yes immediately, and the others are going to think about it for about 24 hours, and then they'll say yes.
Well, so how many young people go through these camps every year, and when are you going to expand these? I think I asked you the last time about maybe expanding and having a camp up in my neck of the woods where I grew up in New England. I'm not sure how many Christians you could find up there, but there are bound to be some. And we can ship some up there for the 2 weeks, then turn them loose for another week.
Well, listen, that's exactly right, Ed. The programs here at the David Noble began 50 years ago. They have exploded in growth. Every single seat has been completely full. And except for this August 18th to the 30th, we have a session. I think we have 7 spots for young men still available because most of the young men who would come to Summit are also, playing football and involved in fall activities. So we've got those spots for young men. But the programs are full. So we're adding one in California next summer at Biola University. Biola, the great people at Biola. And we think that program in Los Angeles will fill up immediately. And then from there, we're going to go to the Northwest and back to the Midwest, the Chicago area. Eventually, we'll end up we're looking at a couple of campuses that are near New York City, far enough away that we can have a little peace and quiet, but close enough that we can get on trains or buses and head into the city.
Good.
And kind of show the young adults what it looks like to live as a Christian in a very cosmopolitan area like that.
Talking to Dr. Jeff Myers, president of Summit Ministries. If you want more information on these academic and Christian camps that they host that we've been talking about, go to their website, summit.org, summit.org. What's your target age group there, Jeff?
Well, we're mainly looking at 16 to 21-year-olds. That's going to be the key. And it's fun. I just got a note from a guy who said, my son is there right now. I just talked to him. Boy, when you get that kind of a note, you think, okay, what comes next could be good or bad. And he said, my son said to me, is not all what he was expecting, that the presenters are fun, they're engaging, and they're challenging, and he loves the food.
Wow.
That's good. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Yeah, the Summit food, the students will come away and say, I will be ruined for camp food for the rest of my life because that was fantastic. And we take care of all those details, we love these kids, and we want to show them that we love them. We hand-select the staff to be with them during that time. They serve as mentors. So, it's just a fantastic 2-week experience. People will tell you, anybody who's been to it will tell you. And then they move into positions of leadership. So we've got people in high office, we've got people in business and medicine and science and all those areas seeking to have an impact for Christ right now.
Jeff, where do you see our country in terms of its philosophical or ideological identity now? Because we used to be known as a Christian country. In fact, in 1892, the Supreme Court of the United States issued a decision, and they basically said, looking, I'm paraphrasing now, looking all around us here, we're declaring that this is a Christian country.
Yeah, and it's clear.
It's clear. Yeah, I mean, the evidence is there. Now 2013 America, somewhere along the way back there, I don't know, you could cite different decades, I guess, the 50 years ago or so, that we began to turn away from the Christian worldview, and then about 10 or 15 years ago, our culture just, put our foot down to the pedal on the metal, so to speak.
Yeah.
And now we're running away from God. I'm talking generally speaking here, folks, not. And so, and his ways and his values, and so moral relativism, we refer to it as sort of the ideology of the day. And so how can we get back? I know that's what you guys, that's the reason you do your training, is so that Christian young people can go and have an influence on their college campuses for righteousness and for godliness and for biblical morality and values and those things. So where do you see us right now in terms of where we are in our country and where we can hope to go?
Well, Tim, a lot of the students we work with, a lot of them are discouraged. My 16-year-old son came to me the other day. We were up at a conference, and he came into the hotel room and leaned back against the door and said, "Tell me if there is hope for America." They worry about that. And so here's what I say to my son. Here's what I say to the students we work with. The sociologist Peter M. Sorokin really nailed this. He went back and looked at the sociology of every civilization in human history. And he said, there's a cycle you go through where you build up your foundational principles, and your nation can become great because of those foundational principles. But then eventually people, they sort of retire from that. They say, we've lived, we worked hard, now we're going to take it easy, we're going to have fun. Just like the parable of the man in the Bible who said, now I'm going to just take it easy because I've worked hard all my life. And what happened is, as soon as he decided to stop really living, he began dying. And that's what happens to a culture. So here's where we are. We have all this social capital that has been developed over the last couple hundred years in business and economics and in academia and so forth, and we're spending it. It's like we have no job, but we still go to the ATM, and money still comes out. But eventually you're going to get an insufficient funds notice. Here's the key. Sorokin says, when you get to that point, what happens? He was a Russian Orthodox man. He said, when you get to that point, what immediately begins to happen is people turn around and say, okay, well, if we have lost it, what actually is true? And there is a rare opportunity, a window in a civilization that occurs, might only be a decade long, in which time people are going to say, we can't sustain our culture anymore. What actually is true? And if Christians are there in every key area of society, you might actually see revival and reformation. That has happened in many civilizations. It's also not happened in many civilizations, and it largely comes down to whether the church is ready when that moment arrives.
And Jeff, I've read some of Sorokin's work, and what he says, which is a salt and light thing from the Bible, he said that people who believe in those fundamental values that have been discarded as the culture decays, they have to endure the slings and arrows and hold to the truth, because they're the ones who the rest of society comes to when they say what is true. And if those folks, if the Christians won't hold true to what the Scripture teaches, there will be nobody left to point the way back.
Hey, we got to end on that note. Jeff, what is your what website again?
We want folks to come to summit.org. Look at the programs there, especially the 12-day program. You got a young adult, 16 to 21 years of age. You want to set them on the right trajectory for life. We want to study with them, work with them, and watch them grow to become the kind of leaders we're talking about we so desperately need.
Go to Summit, SUMMIT.org for all the information on these camps, folks, which we highly endorse and encourage you to find out more information about. We'll see you back in 5 minutes after the news. Ed and Tim, our thanks to Dr. Jeff Myers.